Hey guys, I think it's about time that I share my testimony with everybody because I realize I haven't done that yet. So, when I was young, right, in my heart, I've always known in my heart that there was a God. Alright? I didn't know how, but I just always known. My mom, she was kind of like an agnostic, she believes in the paranormal, but she doesn't believe in any God. My father was an atheist. And in my childhood, I grew up, my mom and my father were in different homes. They were not living together. And I saw my father on the weekends. My father, although he loved me very much, he wasn't perfect. I had to do with a lot of trauma because of the fact that my parents were not together. He kind of would, say some not so nice things about my mom, which in America, like here, all the psychiatrists and like the psychologists that you may go to, they will say to keep the children out of it. But unfortunately, my dad didn't. And of course, I had to learn about my parents and about everything when I was young because my mom had to tell me, because to the point where my father was saying bad things trying to turn me against my mother. But that's the past. I love my father. So, continuing on, when I was young, my stepdad, I'll call him my stepdad because he was a big father figure of mine. I asked his mother to take me to church with her. She is Catholic. And although I know that the Catholic religion, like now that I know what the Catholic religion is, but back then I didn't know anything about God. So I went with her, and at the end of I think they call it Mass, the priest, the priest went around and said for all of us to go around and say, I love you and God loves you too, to the people around us. So at that time, at 6 years old, I knew that there is a God who loves me. Okay. And continuing on, later on, I found a friend who went to church on Sundays. And it was a Nazarene church. And I one day asked, hey, can I start going to church with you? And I continued from then. And that's where the seeds, like, I haven't really changed my life yet, but the seeds were being planted in my life. And when later on, though that wasn't really geared, towards the kid. There was a very small house church, and then I had another friend in my grade. She invited me to go to youth group with her, and then from then on, we would go on these trips to like these conferences. They have like big conferences going on, and everybody would come, and then there's a pastor preaching and everything. That was a Baptist church I went to. And this one sermon that I listened to stuck with me. And he says the topic of that sermon was do not disturb. Are you going to hold that do not disturb sign from the hotel over your heart? And although I haven't, like the two things haven't clicked yet, right? I began to, search a little bit more for God. So by that time period, my father stopped seeing me when I was very young. Middle school, I never saw him anymore. And by the time I was in high school, I started going out with this man. I was 15 and he was 22 years old. And we met online through a mutual friend that I knew. And at that time, I thought he was my knight in shining armor and all these things, and I was in love. But unfortunately, at that time period, I did not choose the right thing. I didn't really have a father to show me what kind of man I'm supposed to be with. I had to find that all on my own. And later on, he started to cheat on me. And it hurt me so much, really, because I was in love with this person. This was my first love ever. And he continuously cheated on me, and then the next day he would still tell me that he loves me. And like that's just a, polar opposite thing. And when I was in sophomore year, finally I met a friend of mine. I met a friend in school, and he was a big help for me. I did not tell him about this until a long time later. I was keeping it hidden. And he was very helpful. He told me about what Jesus has done in his life. And God used him for sure on me. And then after a while, God disturbed my life with this man. I went to New York, right? And God showed me signs telling me not to go there to see him. I waited for 6 hours at the train station until, it was delayed until they finally canceled it. And I still found my way there, even though God was telling me don't go. And I knew he was telling me not to go. I was being rebellious at that time period. Because at that time I was hurt, all I wanted was him. And finally, when I got there, I spent the night with him. I will say that. I spent the night with him. And the very next day, he told me, I don't love you. I love this girl. I love this other girl. I'll call her Kayla. I love Kayla. I don't love you. And it hurt me so much. I went all the way over there. I ended up hitching a ride with 3 other girls on a Lyft, and we went all the way to New York. And that hurt me a lot. But by then, finally, I already knew God was telling me, stay away from this guy, but I physically could not keep myself from this guy. Long before I went on this trip, I was praying to God, please take this man out of my life. I couldn't do it myself. I had such an attachment, and I was so hurt. I was really hurt, the amount of betrayal within this relationship and him blaming me for it. Hurt a lot. I went to New York twice for this person. Twice. And each time he went to that other girl. And finally, that second time where I went there, the next day, went there the next day, he told me he didn't want me. I finally told God, I was like, thank you. Thank you. Finally, I was like, okay, God, I was in rebellion. Now, finally, I would do things your way, and I will follow you. And that's kind of really how I started my relationship with him totally. God took me out of such a bad relationship, and he used one of my very good friends for that. during the time when I was telling him about him, finally I told him about my boyfriend. And he says, "Hey, remember when you told me that story about wearing the do not disturb sign on your heart?" He said, if God has not disturbed your life, changed it, molded you, then you're not a believer. Well, you can believe, but your heart's just not transformed yet. And he reminded me of that, and everything just clicked together. And finally, like, he is my God, and I am his daughter. And I hope to encourage you guys with this testimony. If anyone else is going through a hard time with this whole thing, and through all this, my father passed away when I was 16. And when he passed away, I took it very hard. And even after that, the relationship with my ex, now ex, with that man, was deteriorating fast. He started leaving me for him because for the other girl, I was grieving. And I'm just so happy I have a God who loves me. All right. God bless you all. And I pray that he can use my testimony to maybe help others who are having a difficult time finally just picking up their cross and following him. All right. Bye.